Welcome to another episode of Behind the Studs, your home improvement and remodeling podcast, where the two most entertaining guys discuss the do's and don'ts in home construction and in the remodeling industry. Remember that you can nail it, paint it, or just tune into the show. How about that? Here are your hosts, Colin Shaw and Jimmy Driscoll.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Studs. And to my right, we have a fellow stud, Jimmy Driscoll.
Fellow.
I
am a stud.
You are a stud.
I am studly.
That's exactly what I was just saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Trying to pay you a compliment.
Stunningly charming.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it would have been nice for you to say, and, there's the stud to my left.
There's the stud to my left.
It's all right. It's, I don't know if I have to lead you to the water.
Here's my 2x4 right here.
Keep your 2x4 to yourself.
Here's your 2x4. Right.
All right. So we've got a guest with us today.
I know we do.
All right. We have Nick Hoefly.
Nick Hoefly.
Yep. And he's with Astor Apiaries. Hey, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for coming in, Nick.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is a busy season for you or what a busy season is, but tell everybody what it is that you do.
So I'm an urban beekeeper here in New York City. I run an apiary farm or a bee farm with my wife, Ashley. Okay. And we take care of hives all over the city. We produce some honey from those hives, and then we also work with other beekeepers and source different honeys from different regions and include those all in our shop.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So,
awesome.
So there's like a difference in taste, I guess, from different areas. Is that how it works?
It's a whole spectrum. Honey is just as different as cheeses or wines.
Yeah.
Taste and season to season and so on.
Huh. I didn't know that.
My stepson has a farm up in Plainfield.
Yep.
And he got all these certain flowers that he got. Mm-hmm. And boy, his honey is awesome.
Really?
I'm bragging, but it's like, wow, it's really, really good. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very well. Yeah.
So is that a popular thing where you are? Is there a lot of other beekeepers as well?
There's a decent sized community of beekeepers here in the city. It's not there's not a ton of us, but it's more than you would think for an urban center like New York.
Yeah, man.
Now I know properties
doing it as like a profession for sure, but the hobbyists, there's other guys who are, they have 5 or 10 hives around, and yeah.
Now, how do you go about getting a place to put a hive? I mean, I know property is very expensive there, so how do you get that?
It's got to be on a rooftop, right?
You're exactly right. So square footage is at a premium, and there's not a whole lot extra space for beehives. So we don't have a field where I can just go out and put 100 hives. I've got to put 4 here or 6 over here or 2 in a backyard. Yeah, most of the time we're putting them on the rooftops. And one of the cool things is actually we also put them in cemeteries. So wouldn't think of a cemetery, but in a place like New York City, cemeteries are some of our really great green spaces around. So
right, yeah, wow.
Well, when I lived in the city, right outside Queens, you got that huge cemetery, right? Oh my God, it's just like it's like it never ends. It's endless. It's huge.
That would be very ironic on my gravesite to have a beehive. Since I'm allergic to bees.
Your will?
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. There's something a little...
Yeah, there's an interesting piece of
Yeah.
trivia about Queens that there's actually more people buried in Queens than living in Queens.
No,
right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lots of cemeteries.
Oh, wow.
How did you work that out to like, hey, you know what? We could get why don't we put beehives in the cemetery? How did you get that to pass? What did you do? Just call the cemetery and say, hey, listen. And you do it?
I actually kind of walked into a situation that was already happening. So I took over the beekeeper service at Greenwood Cemetery, which is a huge, almost 500-acre cemetery in Brooklyn. But
dying to get in there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
But boom.
Don't set them up like that, Nick.
I know.
I'll be going all day like this.
But no, they had been keeping hives for 2 or 3 years before I got there, and the current beekeeper was ready to get his summer weekends back and let someone else take over the job. So I took it over, and I've been there for I think this is going to be the end of my 5th season there so far.
Wow.
That guy, he made a beeline for a vacation
Jesus,
spot.
oh my God.
Here we go. I'm on a roll now, baby.
I apologize, Nick. Really. Yeah. So explain the season to me. What is the season?
So here in New York City, and actually in kind of the Northeast region, our season generally starts in March or April. We are installing new bees. We're getting hives that have made it through the winter ready to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
We go into the early summer, which here in New York City, that's our big nectar flow. So we're getting honey mainly from all the linden trees that are planted in sidewalks and parks and all over the place. But that's our big nectar flow. In the late summer, we are harvesting that honey. We're starting to get the bees ready for winter already. And then by the time we roll around to fall, we're doing like fall festivals, selling obviously our crop or our harvest, and just continuing to make sure the bees stay nice and healthy as we get to the winter. And then once they go into winter, there's not a whole lot that we have to do. So
Well, how do you get them ready for winter? What do you do?
So the main thing we're doing is making sure that they have plenty of food, plenty of stores for going through the whole winter, because there's no flowers blooming. So
Right.
the reason that they produce so much honey and so much surplus honey that we can actually take is because they just will collect it until the bloom is over, until there's no more forage. So they sock that all away for the winter. We make sure they have plenty of food going into the winter. And then we also have to worry about things like pests and disease, making sure that they're not getting sick or getting weak as we're getting close to that winter time.
That's something.
That is something. So you actually harvest just one time a year. You get all your honey just one time a year.
For us, we have to get it just once a year. But I also kind of mentioned this was for like beekeeping is always local. So beekeeping here is going to be a little bit different than it is out on Long Island. It's going to be a little bit different than it is up in Maine. And then it's going to be a lot different than it's going to be in like South Carolina or Texas. Or as you move around to these different climates, your season might kind of expand, might kind of contract. And depending on how much forage there is, meaning how many different types of plants are blooming and producing enough nectar, if you're in Florida, you might be able to harvest 3 or 4 times during the year and never really have a winter season that the bees have to make it through. But for us and people, anybody north of us, we're dealing with, a few months of winter time where the bees are actually kind of put away. They cluster up in the hive, and they've just got to make it to the next spring.
Now, how do you protect them during the winter? I mean, is there like a box that they're in, or is there covers over them? How does that work?
Yeah, so all the hives stay in place. Some bigger scale operations actually will truck their hives to a warmer climate for the winter.
Wow. Okay.
For us, the logistics of pulling, all these different hives off of all of these different rooftops would be too much. So the hives stay in place. We generally will wrap them with something like the black roofing felt, or even some insulation. And then other than that, as long as we've done a good job keeping them healthy and keeping them fed, it's really up to them to get through. They're going to cluster up and keep themselves warm, keep the queen nice and protected in the middle of that cluster, and hopefully make it to the next season.
Do you happen to know how warm it gets in a beehive during the winter?
So it's actually really interesting. So if you've ever seen any of the documentaries about the Arctic, like the penguins, when they're out,
it's like 60 degrees on the inside, right? Yep.
Exactly. And everybody else on the outside is cold, but they're the insulation for the inside, right?
And they keep moving. They exchange, right? They go.
Exactly. This is totally the same mechanism that the bees use, only instead of a big circle, they're a big ball. So the bees on the outside, even if it's 0 degrees outside, they're going to get down to like 45 degrees or so in their body temperature. They start going comatose and actually can die from it after about like 42 degrees. So they get right down to the cage. But the bees inside are going to be vibrating their flight muscles and producing heat. And the queen right in the middle of the cluster, she's going to stay at a toasty like 85, 90 degrees all winter long. It's
Wow.
pretty cool, the heat that they produce. But just like penguins, they'll churn. So the bees that were on the outside will have a turn on the inside and vice versa.
Huh.
Wow.
I just thought they went dormant for the winter.
I did too.
I didn't realize they were so active.
Oh,
They-
I thought
you know-
bees migrated.
Yeah.
I thought bees migrated.
So the honeybees themselves don't migrate. Once they settle into a nest, they're there. With the one exception is if they swarm, and that's something else we can talk about. But when they set up shop, they're usually there. And you might have heard stories of like, a colony of bees living in a church steeple or an old house or something for years, and they will just keep going as long as everything's nice for them, looking good, and they got plenty of room to live. So
If the queen decides, hey, I'm not crazy about this place anymore, and she wants to fly out, and she flies out, they follow her, right? That's beeline. That's how the beeline came about.
So they do, but she's actually, despite her name, she doesn't have any authority in the hive to kind of make those decisions. It's a very democratic process. The bees kind of make these decisions as a collective, and once they are ready to leave, they'll actually put the queen on a diet and get her a little bit leaner so that she's able to fly under her own power. When she's full of eggs and she's laying, she's too heavy to fly. But they put her on a diet, get her ready to fly, and within about a week and a half or 2 weeks, a swarm will be up and out of there for sure.
Get her
my
on a
God.
Peloton.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker,
Yeah.
Congressman
Yeah.
Mr. Boz would like to speak in a moment.
I would love to see our government run that
Can you imagine
democratically.
that?
Yes. That's awesome.
It's a
I vote
fabulous
that we
example of this natural democracy that just works.
Wow.
There's no the bees don't take things as personally as we do. So
Really? Really?
one
Because I'd like
decision
to be the bee. I'd like to be the bee who has to go tell the queen that she's too fat and she's got to lose some weight so she can fly. Hey, fat ass. Go get you tell her.
Hey, Louie, back me up on this.
Yeah, right. You tell her she's fat. Just tell her she's big boned. Then you might get away with it.
Anyway. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Back to the show.
Back to the show. Come on now.
So how does it go? Go ahead.
Yeah,
That's how
well,
it works.
so
That's how
they
I work.
swarm. The kind of neat thing is that the half the population will leave with the queen, and wherever the queen flies at that point, the colony will follow because she's kind of the scent marker. She's her pheromones is what kind of holds them together. So they'll follow her and they'll look for a new place to live. Meanwhile, the other half of the colony will stay behind and they'll actually raise a new queen. And so this is a way that they can reproduce on a colony scale as opposed to individually.
So can just any bee grow into a queen bee, or how does that work?
So any female egg has the potential to be a queen bee, but it has to be fed a specific diet, and this is actually where we get the term royal jelly. So an egg and a larva, as it develops, if it's only fed a diet of royal jelly, then it will develop those mutations or that more sophisticated reproductive system. Whereas if it's not, usually the eggs will go from a little bit of royal jelly at the beginning, and then as they develop into larvae, they'll switch over to this other substance called bee bread, which is a mixture of pollen and nectar. But they'll go to that, and they won't have that mutation triggered. So they will actually just turn into a worker, and they will still have all workers have ovaries, so they still have reproductive organs, but they just don't have them at the scale of the queen. And generally, their whole reproductive system is put on hold as long as the queen's pheromone is in the hive.
That is so. She's the only one who can actually give birth. Is the queen?
She's the only one that will be able to lay eggs while she's in there. If you take a queen out of there and they're not able to make a new queen, then you'll have some workers laying some eggs, but they can't lay the volume or the the right type of egg that the queen can lay. So she's unique in that aspect. But she, at a certain point, she's just an egg laying machine for the colony. She really doesn't make any decisions or have that kind of ruler power that we associate with her name.
That's
Wow,
crazy.
that is crazy.
She gets prime rib and everyone else gets Cheetos or chicken nuggets.
That's why she gets so fat.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then you got to go tell her. How long you been doing this, man?
I've been doing this for a little over 6 years.
Wow.
It started out as a hobby with a friend, and it was something that just kind of I wanted to find a way to do it more, but it's an expensive hobby when you start. So I needed a way to finance the hobby. So I sold a little bit of honey at the beginning, and it just kind of grew from there. And that was 2 hives at the beginning, and now I manage about 60 hives around the city.
Wow, 60. Holy cow.
Do you live in Manhattan or do you just rent in Manhattan? Do you own an apartment in Manhattan or are you renting?
I actually own a house in Queens. I'm just over the river.
All right.
In a store.
All right. So here's my question. Since you do that as a profession, can you write that off in your taxes? Because are you like basically like a farm because you're raising bees?
So I wish I could. It's not.
It's not agricultural.
Yeah, it's not
agricultural?
exactly agricultural. I mean, obviously, I'm able to write things off. For certain things, we're able to work under cottage industry laws for a lot of the operations since we're producing our own honey. So we are able to use some of the unique things about being an agricultural business, but as far as any like write-offs on the property or the land or anything, it's hard to do that.
That's not right. I think you should be able to do that. No, I really do.
Right, I agree too. It's a form of farming.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Yep. And I mean, it's livestock if you want to look at it that way too.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Definitely.
So we'll get working on that.
So,
all right.
See, if he had a peanut farm, right? You could write that off. He'd get tax write-offs.
Yep.
But you got honey. So
Yeah.
peanuts and honey. Right?
Roasted peanuts.
Yeah.
Roasted honey peanuts. Good.
I think we got something going here.
Yeah, we're back to eating again. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
Right.
We didn't solve the problem, but we're back to eating, so that's good.
No. Okay.
How long do bees live on an average?
The workers are living anywhere from 8 weeks to up to 4 or 5 months. Now they have to make it through the winter, so they live longer. Then in the summertime, they literally work themselves to death. And then you have the queen who can live for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And then the last one that we haven't really talked about is the drone. That's the male.
Drone, yep.
And that guy, if he mates, that's the end of his life right there. But if he never mates, he lives for about 12 weeks.
Wow. That's kind of parallel to human life.
That's where the one night stand comes from.
Yeah, after he impregnates his other person, then
there's a bunch of insects that do that, like praying mantises. Like
his life is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, one and done.
One and done. That's all right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Now, where do you get your bees from?
It depends. There are a few larger distributors that we've worked with in the past. This year in particular, we actually worked with a beekeeper out of Ohio because it's hard to breed bees here, and we don't have really the room to have a full operation. When we do have to replace losses, we generally have to go somewhere. And so when we're working with the distributors, their bees can come as far away from as like California.
Wow.
Which, they're nice bees and everything, but they aren't exactly acclimated to our climate. So this guy in Ohio that I worked with last year, or for this past season, his bees at least go through a nice winter like ours do. So hopefully we're getting some better stock. There's beekeepers upstate New York, out in Western New York that we've worked with as well to get bees in. But yeah, we're generally, if we have to replace any hives, we're going elsewhere to find bees.
Yeah, go more north because They're tougher. California's California. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. Yeah.
A little laid back.
Yeah, it's a little gnarly
Yeah.
weather back there on the East Coast. Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow.
So they live pretty much the same amount of time all over the U.S. It's not just because there's colder winters here.
Generally,
Yeah.
Just do it.
Up in Canada, those bees will have to make it through a 5-month winter. As you go further south, they live. They don't have to make it through such a long winter. So some of the bees are probably not living as that long. But yeah, during the summer, it's incredible. You can see the eldest bees because their wings are just tattered and torn like a flag that's been up on a pole for too long.
Wow.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's a matter of 6-8 weeks, they're done.
Wow.
Do you have to worry about disease?
We do. And really, the thing that is causing the most disease is actually a pest. It's this mite called a varroa mite. And
right.
Yeah, they actually will attach themselves to the bee and feed on this organ in the bee called a fat body. And once they attach, they're also transmitting certain viruses into the bees, which also further weaken the bees. And it's a whole domino effect if you're not on top of it. But there's that.
Well, you also,
yeah,
I was gonna say you had the killer hornet this year too, right?
Well, we do, but we really don't. So they found some nests out in the Northwest, but nothing remotely close to here. And if they do make their way across the country, it's not going to be for a few years at least. So
okay.
Nothing to worry about here. We do get calls all the time from people who think they found killer hornets or murder hornets or wasps or whatever. And it's generally, here in the Northeast, we have a few decent sized hornets that are out there, but nothing that's like decimating all of our hives or anything like that.
Right. Okay. That's good. It's good news.
I don't know if this is relatable, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Of course you are.
Because I've been stung by yellow jackets all summer, right?
Yeah.
So what are you saying? What are you?
No, I you know me with bees.
Oh, you went.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
No,
I'm getting stung.
No.
Yeah, because they're allergic.
Yeah, allergic.
Though they two do not get along, or they just stay away from each other. If they bump into each other, does the hornet try to attack the bee and kill the bee, or is it just like you do your thing and we do ours? Leave us alone?
No, the hornets and wasps are carnivorous, and they do feed on other insects, including honeybees. In fact, if they do catch a honeybee, all the juicy bits are in that abdomen or that back part of the honeybee. So often during the late summer and fall times, if I can sometimes find a bee walking along the ground who just doesn't have her abdomen. It's been literally bitten off by the wasps and taken, and of course she will eventually die.
Bastards.
But if you get enough of them in one hive, they can do some damage. But the bees have ways to fight back. So it's not like, again, the wasps and hornets aren't coming through and just tearing up all of our hives. The hives can defend themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed at my house too, when I had hornets, because I did have a pile of hornets in my house. I had no flies. They were eating the flies. They were grabbing them and getting them. And then after that, when I killed a hornet's nest, I had more flies. But then I had dragonflies, and those guys decimate flies.
Oh yeah.
They just go out in the field and
they're
just
great
picking
to watch.
them off.
They're so much fun to watch.
Oh my God, it's an air show.
Yeah, it is.
Picking them off. Then I had no more flies again.
Yeah.
So that was good.
All right. So question, what is the stuff that you use that keeps them nice and happy while you're around them and they're not stinging you?
Smoke,
my protective gear, like my suit and gloves. All that stuff is good.
What is the smoke from?
it's a smoker. They have a
so-
smoker.
Yeah, the smoker, definitely.
Yeah.
We can burn anything that burns cleanly.
Okay.
Anything like pine straw, cardboard, paper, wood chips, burlap. Anything that doesn't have plastic, it's not going to burn off any toxic fumes.
Gotcha.
We can burn that in the smoker, and the smoke does a few things. it generally will distract the bees. So we're trying to get their attention off of the beekeeper and onto themselves. So it will distract them from us. It breaks up their communication. They communicate through pheromones. So if you have a lot of smoke in the area, they can't really talk to each other. And then lastly, it also triggers this instinct to eat. So they'll go and gorge themselves on honey. And just like any of us after a Thanksgiving dinner or a big meal, it's time to go take a nap. So the bees kind of get a little slower. They're not really taking a nap or falling asleep, but they aren't as active as they are generally.
I wonder what would happen if you like put a little pot in there and smoked them out. How they would act? You know, they would.
I'm not sure.
Can you imagine that? Oh, they need a lot more honey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have a lot more sex.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll be big and fat.
Where's that bee going? It's going to get a pizza. Okay.
All right. So you had mentioned this before that we should talk about swarming. So what is swarming?
Yeah.
So yeah, swarming is a totally natural process of a colony splitting in two, reproducing on a colony scale. It's something that in nature, that's how bees populate an entire forest. However, in a small or in a more densely packed city, it's generally kind of frowned upon to have your bees swarm. It can cause people who don't quite understand the bees to panic, and it just it doesn't look great.
Yeah,
Are you one of them?
Yeah, I would be one of those, like that cartoon where they're running and that big swarm is running behind you. That would be me.
Oh.
Like, I don't know what the hell they're up to, but I'm out of here.
Bees.
Yeah,
I love bees.
The irony of it, though, is that swarming is actually one of the more gentler times for the bees. They have no brood to protect. They have no food to protect. They have no hive to protect. So
okay.
They're really not out to they're not out for blood when they're swarming. They're just trying to find a new home. And a lot of times when you see them here in the city, it's always a little bit of a news event. If there's a news truck close by, they'll usually go and film the bees, and then sometimes a beekeeper will show up, whether it's from the NYPD or if it's just the guy like me showing up, we'll go and collect them and put them in a new hive and try to build them up to get through the season and the winter.
How do you collect them? You're looking for the queen? You trying to find the queen?
It's always great to find the queen because the swarms, like I mentioned before, they like her pheromone. They want to stick with her pheromone, so they will follow her wherever she goes. If we can find her, one of the more amazing things to watch, you can put her in a small little cage and put her right in a hive box, and within about 5-10 minutes, the entire cluster of bees will just start marching right in. It's like from all this chaos, all this order comes in, and they just start marching right in these lines, and you got a box of bees.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. Otherwise, if we have to get bees out of the way quickly, we use like a bee vac. So it's just a low pressure vacuum, and we'll get out there and just vacuum them right off the post or right off the tree.
Wow.
Dyson.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your worst horror story? Tell us any horror stories.
Oh boy.
Just one.
Yeah. I mean, a few years ago there was a monster swarm that we were taking off of a fence post. It was literally it had landed there in the morning. It was right next to a bus stop, and for whatever reason, I mean, maybe not for whatever reason, but not too much stuff phases New Yorkers. But nobody called the cops. Nobody did anything. They just kept walking by. Buses kept going by. People were waiting for the bus. Until finally someone that I knew, they were walking by and they saw it and called me up that evening. And so I went over, and bees don't like to be messed with too much after dark. So we were collecting them, and I didn't have all my gear. I had a jacket. I had everything, but I was in shorts. It was the middle of summer. And I wasn't able to go grab any jeans or anything. So that night I was pretty lit up all on my legs with stings. I think I had 25 or 30.
Oh my
So,
God.
Do
yeah.
they sting worse? Does a bee sting worse than a hornet, or is a hornet worse? The hornet sting worse? A yellow jacket worse than a bee sting?
They're pretty equal to me.
Ow!
I've been stung a lot more by bees, just a handful of times by like a yellow jacket or anything like that. But the bee stings, it's not that stinger, it's that venom that goes in, and that's really what you feel down in your bones and your muscles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you.
Yeah, man. Oh, no way.
Oh man, I got it. But we've talked about it on the show. I've been hit so many times.
I'd carry my smoke gun with me.
Yeah.
That thing would
Oh
always
my
be in my
God.
holster. Like, nope.
Yeah. I got stung. Give me some smoke.
Yeah. The thing would be like a fog machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Wow.
So
Okay.
what do? You sell honey products and stuff? Do you have like a store or is it online? How do you do that?
Yeah, we sell everything through our website at astorapiaries.com.
Okay.
We have our New York City honey, which is coming from all of our hives, Queens, Brooklyn, a little bit from Manhattan as well.
Yeah.
We have that. And then we have a whole range of honey that, like I was mentioning earlier, honey is very different from place to place, from season to season. And you can, in North America, bees can produce over 300 different types of honey.
Wow.
Honey isn't just one thing. And that's something that before I got into bees, I had no concept about.
Yeah, this is probably the part of the interview that blows my mind the most. That it's like different taste by regions and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking wine's just like he was mentioning before. That's just that I just had no idea. No idea.
And it's not even different region. It's like the same honey from the same time of year from the same place might be different year to year because of the weather, because of the climate. And you might be able to get different types of honey throughout a summer, throughout a season, based on what's blooming. So probably heard like clover honey or orange blossom honey. Those you can find almost everywhere. But that's because that's what the bees were pollinating or foraging on when it was produced. And the beekeeper harvested that honey right after the pollination. So we work with beekeepers who go and pollinate blueberry fields, alfalfa fields, buckwheat fields, and you're able to get like these really unique, totally different honeys in color and flavor and aroma, just based on what the bees are feeding on and what time that they're harvesting all of this stuff.
That's crazy. I just can't get over like.
Yeah, so like 2015, 16 was a good year for Bordeaux. What was a good year for honey?
Every year is a good year for honey.
Every year is a great year for honey.
Yeah.
I would have to say actually, the interesting thing about last year, everybody was locked in for the pandemic, right?
Right.
So we had all this time, especially here in the city, where so many parks and green spaces were kind of left to grow. There weren't people trampling through all the fields in Central Park or Astoria Park here for us, or any of these bigger parks that have these lawns. There wasn't anybody there to do anything. So the bees really took advantage of it, and we had like double crops last year. It was incredible the amount of honey that they were bringing back. I almost didn't have enough equipment to keep putting boxes on top of the hives.
Wow.
It was an incredible year, but when because they're going to a specific plant, like the linden trees here, for example, we don't, unless we have a total like drought or a total reason that they're just not producing any honey. We're always harvesting something that's pretty good,
Yeah.
We don't get like these. We generally don't get these like off flavor crops or anything. It's pretty standard. It'll vary a little bit year to year, but it's good. It's usually the amount that's different.
Well, okay,
that's awesome. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed myself today.
I did too. I mean, I think I have a motto for the honey.
Oh no!
On the label, I think you just say, "I should New York City honey with an attitude."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be awesome.
Bees with an attitude.
Hey, it's my honey.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
These are the Joe Pesci bees right here.
Yeah. Well, Nick, it was really nice to meet you. We really do appreciate you coming on and telling your story, teaching our listeners a little bit about bees.
Teaching us,
yeah, and definitely teaching us. I mean, our producer booked this a couple weeks out, and I remember seeing it on the schedule, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's just something so different that we just don't do or know enough about. So we appreciate your expertise
very much
and knowledge. So
absolutely, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So visit AstorApiaries.com, and we had Nick Hoefly with us, and go buy some honey.
Buy some honey.
Buy some honey.
Yeah, man.
It's the holiday season.
It's good stuff,
and
man.
it's not stuck in a port somewhere trying to get on land, right?
Right.
It's already here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, ready to go.
Yeah,
right.
shop local for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just want to mention for next week we have Dave Sellinger. He's with Deep Sentinel. He basically takes home security to the next level. I think we talked a little bit about it on the last show. It's kind of one of those systems that kind of learns and grows and kind of educates itself on activities that's in the neighborhood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and then we're also he also wants to talk to everybody about how to keep your packages safe, like when you get them from Amazon and they get put on your deck, and then people come by and steal them. So,
well, I got this guy right here. He's got bees.
Right.
Bees
just throw a swarm at them and
put
watch
bees
them
on
run down
your
the road, and they'll be fine.
It.
Yeah. So everybody join us next week for that as well. Jimmy, it was fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah, I had a good time today.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend. I will see you next week.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.